3 emotional reasons men over 60 stay with women who make them feel this way. What if I told you that the secret to keeping a man after 60 has nothing to do with looking younger, cooking better, or being more agreeable? What if the women who inspire unwavering devotion from mature men aren't the ones trying hardest to please, but the ones who understand something deeper about what the masculine heart craves at this stage of life? At 68, Robert had been married twice before. Successful divorces, he called them. No drama, fair settlements, mutual respect. But when he met Patricia at a community college art class, something shifted. "I'm not going anywhere," he told her after just 6 months together. "I finally found someone who makes me feel like me, but better." Patricia wasn't the most conventionally beautiful woman Robert had dated. She wasn't the youngest, the wealthiest, or the most accomplished, but she made him feel something that all his previous relationships had lacked, something that men over 60 desperately crave but rarely know how to ask for. Today, we're exploring the 3 emotional needs that, when met, create such deep contentment in mature men that leaving becomes unthinkable. These aren't the obvious needs: companionship, physical comfort, shared interests. These are the deeper psychological hungers that determine whether a man sees you as a pleasant companion or as the woman he can't imagine living without. The psychologist Abraham Maslow wrote about the hierarchy of human needs, but he missed something crucial. After 60, men develop entirely new emotional needs that didn't exist in their youth. The women who understand and fulfill these needs don't just keep their men, they inspire a devotion that deepens with every passing year. If you've ever wondered what makes some relationships grow stronger with age while others simply endure, or if you want to understand what mature men truly crave from the women in their lives, hit that subscribe button, because what we're discussing today will change how you approach love after 60.
Emotional reason number 1. She makes him feel genuinely seen. The first emotional reason men over 60 stay with certain women is devastatingly simple. She sees who he really is, not who he used to be or who he thinks he should be. After decades of performing masculinity, being the provider, the protector, the one with all the answers, mature men often feel invisible in the most profound way. Not just overlooked, but fundamentally unseen for who they truly are beneath all the roles they've played. This invisibility runs deeper than most people understand. For 40 years, perhaps more, he's been defined by his function: the executive, the father, the husband, the problem solver. But somewhere in that relentless performance of competence and strength, the essential self, the dreamer, the doubter, the man who still wonders if he's good enough, got buried so deep he sometimes forgets it exists. The woman who makes a man feel genuinely seen does something revolutionary. She archaeologicals work on his soul. She looks past his resume, his achievements, his carefully curated public persona, to excavate the human being who's been hiding underneath. She notices not just what he does, but who he becomes when he thinks no one is watching, when his guard is down, when he's simply existing rather than performing. Carl Jung wrote, "The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But this transformation only happens when both people are willing to be seen in their authentic complexity, shadows and light, strength and fragility, wisdom and confusion. This seeing manifests in ways both subtle and profound. She notices his quiet acts of kindness that he doesn't even recognize in himself. How he always leaves generous tips, not to impress, but because he remembers what it was like to work for small money. How he checks on neighbors after storms. How he still opens doors not from obligation, but from a gentleness that survived decades in competitive environments. She sees the boy who still exists in the 68-year-old man, the one who gets excited about learning something new, who feels disappointed when plans fall through, who needs encouragement even though he'd never ask for it. She recognizes the dreams he carries quietly, not the grand ambitions of youth, but the quieter hopes of later life. To matter, to contribute, to leave something beautiful behind. When Thomas, 64, talks about his wife of 8 years, his entire demeanor changes. She sees things about me that I didn't even know about myself. She notices when I'm tired before I admit it, when I'm worried about something I haven't mentioned, when I'm proud of something I'm too modest to celebrate. With her, I don't have to translate myself into acceptable terms. I can just be. And somehow, that's enough. More than enough. It's everything. This kind of seeing requires emotional intelligence that typically develops with age and experience. Younger people often see potential or possibility in partners, focusing on who they could become with the right encouragement or changes. Mature women who understand this principle see actuality, the full, complex, beautiful reality of who a person is right now, complete with contradictions, imperfections, and the accumulated wisdom that comes from decades of living. The profound gift of being truly seen is that it allows a man to stop hiding. When someone sees you completely and chooses to stay, to love, to appreciate what they see, it creates a safety that transforms the entire relationship. He can let down defenses he's carried so long he forgot they were there. Have you ever felt truly seen by someone? That feeling of being known, not for your roles or achievements, but for who you are at your core? Share what that experience was like in the comments below.
Emotional reason number 2. She makes him feel emotionally safe. The second emotional reason runs even deeper. She creates a sanctuary where his emotional vulnerability is not just accepted, but cherished as a gift rather than tolerated as a weakness. Men over 60 carry invisible wounds. The decades of being strong have never allowed them to heal. The father who never said he was proud, whose approval remained forever just out of reach. The career disappointments he swallowed without complaint because showing disappointment wasn't an option. The friends lost to death, divorce, or simple drift, mourned in private because men aren't supposed to grieve friendships. The fears about mortality, relevance, and legacy that he's never felt safe enough to voice because admitting fear feels like admitting failure. This emotional armor, forged over decades of necessity, becomes both protection and prison. By the time men reach their 60s, many have become so skilled at emotional self-sufficiency that they've forgotten how to be emotionally vulnerable, even when they desperately want to be. The woman who creates lasting devotion in a mature man understands something profound. At this stage of life, emotional safety isn't a luxury, it's oxygen. Without it, men suffocate slowly, becoming harder, more distant, more bitter with each passing year. With it, they can finally breathe fully, perhaps for the first time in decades. Dr. Sue Johnson, who developed emotionally focused therapy, discovered that we are only as emotionally strong as the people who have our back. The woman who becomes irreplaceable to a man over 60 is the one who has his back not just in practical matters, but in the vulnerable territory of his inner emotional landscape. This emotional safety manifests in ways both subtle and revolutionary. She doesn't judge him when he admits he's scared about his health, his finances, or his future, fears that feel shameful to a man who spent decades being the one others turn to for strength and solutions. She doesn't try to fix his sadness about friends who died, or minimize his grief about paths not taken, dreams deferred, opportunities missed. She doesn't mock his sentimental attachments, the old watch his father gave him, the books he can't throw away, the rituals that give his days meaning, or dismiss his concerns as silly or overthinking. Instead, she creates space for the full range of his human experience, without trying to edit it into something more comfortable. She can hold his tears without rushing to stop them, understanding that tears are often the price of being fully alive. She can witness his anger without taking it personally or insisting he calm down immediately. She can sit with his fears without hurrying to reassure him out of them, recognizing that sometimes what we need isn't solutions, but companionship in the darkness. Marcus, 71, describes this transformation. I spent 40 years in corporate law where showing any emotion was career suicide. Strong handshake, firm voice, never let them see you sweat. That was survival. With Eleanor, I can be sad, scared, angry, confused, hopeful, disappointed, all the things I never felt safe being anywhere else. She doesn't try to talk me out of my feelings or fix them, she just lets me have them. She holds space for my humanity. That's incredibly rare and incredibly healing. This emotional safety allows men to access parts of themselves they may have shut down decades ago. The creativity that got buried under pragmatic concerns, the tenderness that felt too risky in competitive environments, the playfulness that seemed inappropriate for serious men with serious responsibilities, the wonder and curiosity that never really died but went into hiding. The woman who provides this sanctuary doesn't do it by being weak, overly nurturing, or sacrificing her own emotional needs. She does it by being emotionally secure enough to handle the full spectrum of human experience without being threatened by it, overwhelmed by it, or compelled to fix it. This creates what therapists call earned security, the ability to be vulnerable because you've learned through experience that vulnerability will be met with compassion rather than judgment, acceptance rather than advice, presence rather than solutions.
Emotional reason number 3. She makes him feel like he still matters. The third emotional reason is perhaps the most crucial. She makes him feel that his presence, his opinions, his contributions still have value and impact in a world that increasingly seems to suggest otherwise. One of the most devastating aspects of aging for many men is the gradual, relentless sense of becoming irrelevant. Retirement strips away professional identity that may have defined them for 4 decades. Adult children need less guidance, advice, and support. Physical limitations reduce their ability to be useful in traditional ways. They can't lift heavy things, fix everything, or solve every problem with strength and determination. The digital world moves faster than they can learn. Pop culture references fly over their heads. Their opinions on everything from technology to social issues are often dismissed as outdated before they're fully expressed. The question that haunts many men over 60, spoken or unspoken, is devastatingly simple. Do I still matter? This isn't vanity or ego, it's a fundamental human need for significance that becomes more pressing as mortality looms larger. Men who spent decades being needed, consulted, depended upon, suddenly find themselves feeling like relics of a bygone era, tolerated rather than treasured, humored rather than heard. The woman who inspires lasting devotion answers this question not with words, but with the way she treats his thoughts, values his input, seeks his perspective, and genuinely enjoys his company. This isn't about false flattery or ego stroking, both of which mature men can detect immediately and find insulting rather than comforting. It's about authentic appreciation for the wisdom, perspective, and presence that come with having lived fully for over 6 decades. Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps and understood human dignity in its deepest form, wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how." The woman who makes a man feel like he still matters helps him remember his why, his purpose, his value, his reason for continuing to grow and contribute, even when his traditional roles have evolved or ended. This might look like genuinely seeking his opinion on decisions, not because she can't decide for herself, but because she values the perspective that comes from decades of experience, both success and failure, triumph and disappointment. She recognizes that his judgment has been refined by time, that his insights carry weight not because of his position, but because of his journey. She celebrates his victories, both large and small, the garden he's cultivating with patience and care, the book he's writing that may never be published but represents his attempt to make sense of his experience, the skill he's learning simply because it brings him joy, the friend he's helping through a difficult time. She treats his dreams with respect, whether they're about traveling to places he's never seen, or mastering something he's always wanted to learn, or contributing to causes that matter to him. But perhaps most importantly, she makes him feel valued not for what he can do for her, but for who he is with her. She lights up when he walks into the room, not from dependency, but from genuine pleasure in his company. She's interested in his thoughts, amused by his stories, proud of his accomplishments, even when they're small by worldly standards. David, 69, explains it this way: "My first wife tolerated me. I was useful, reliable, a good provider, but I always felt like I was slightly irritating her just by existing. My second wife needed me for security, for practical help, for social status, but I felt more like a resource than a person. But Janet, she actually enjoys me. She's interested in my thoughts, not because she needs my advice, but because she finds my mind fascinating. She's amused by my quirks rather than annoyed by them. She's proud to be with me not because of what I can give her, but because of who I am. I feel like I matter not because of my function, but because of my essence." This sense of mattering transforms everything about how a man experiences his later years. Instead of feeling like he's slowly becoming irrelevant, he feels like he's finally becoming fully appreciated. Instead of apologizing for taking up space, he occupies his space with confidence. Instead of feeling like his best years are behind him, he begins to believe that his richest years might be ahead. How do you show the important people in your life that they matter to you? What are the ways you've felt valued that go beyond practical usefulness? Share your insights. Sometimes the smallest gestures make the biggest impact.
When a woman makes a man feel genuinely seen, emotionally safe, and personally significant, something magical happens. He doesn't just stay with her. He becomes more himself than he's been in decades. And she becomes witness to a transformation that deepens their connection beyond anything either of them imagined possible. The mask he's worn for decades begins to slip away, revealing someone more authentic, vulnerable, and capable of genuine intimacy than his younger self ever was. In return, she gets to love not just the performance of masculinity, but the full, complex, beautiful reality of a human being who trusts her enough to be completely real. This creates relationships that don't just endure, they flourish, becoming sources of joy, growth, and meaning that make aging feel like a privilege rather than a loss. If this message helped you understand what creates unshakable devotion in mature relationships, subscribe for more insights into how love evolves and deepens with age. Share this with anyone seeking to understand what makes connection last. And remember, the goal isn't to make someone stay. It's to create the kind of love that makes both people grateful every single day for the privilege of truly knowing and being known by another human being.